Okay, after all of that, you might be eager for the programming to begin again. Perhaps you're even feeling a little quarrelsome, no? Well, I'm joined here today by two very quarrelsome fellows indeed. David Shields is the author of 16 books, including Reality Hunger, named one of the best books of 2010 by more than 30 publications. And The Thing About Life is That One Day You'll Be Dead, a New York Times bestseller. Caleb Powell, sitting opposite him, is a writer and stay-at-home father who lives in Seattle. I've met a lot of quarrelsome people, but these two are different. Rather than argue in private, alone, like normal people, Caleb and David, who met more than 25 years ago when Caleb was a student of David's at a creative writing workshop at the University of Washington in Seattle, they decided to record a 4-day conversation in which the pair debated everything from literature and bad book titles to alcohol, sex, and marriage. The result is I Think You're Totally Wrong, a Quarrel, which was just published by Knopf, and there are copies of it available out in the lobby. The Quarrel, as David and Caleb call it, is an attempt to disturb preconceived divisions between reality and fiction, life and art, by one writer who thrives in the cathedral of art and the other in the chaos of life. It was also made into a film by none other than James Franco. He has allowed us to show a bit of the film. Without further ado, I Think You're Totally Wrong.
That's legitimate. What's wrong with that? I mean,
we grew to, anyway, it was sort of funny. It was like, anyway, that was just a strong statement that, the feeling was mutual that we disliked each other. Did you feel that I didn't like you in class?
I kind of felt you avoided some of my pushback sometimes.
Well, you're a very obstreperous fellow. I mean,
that was what, 25 years ago, 22 years ago.
Right.
What do you think? Did you like me? I was like, wow, I'm going to hang out with Caleb after class.
Thank you for sitting through the first 20 minutes of our film. And this event today is about the sources of inspiration for literary art. So we wanted to talk for a while about how the book and film came to be.
Before our friendship became active, you're kind of a standoffish, prickly guy to deal with. Your emails are terse. You don't seem very warm in person. I always had that feeling. And then even after, we do this project back in 2011 and, had a big hug at the end, and it was we felt like we had a very good experience. But, your odd standoffish behavior has continued. And I would even say up until now. And you ask the same questions 5-6 times, and I answer them, and then you ask them again. I'm like, does he? And I know you're, inveterately absent-minded. Okay, that's so it's on you, David.
Great, thanks for sharing. Okay, so basically, I think I want to have a little bit more of a substantive discussion that, if you want to hear us Quarrel, you can read the book if you like, or the film, I hope, if and when the film is released. But I think in terms of inspiration, though, I wanted to share how the film happened. James Franco was my former student at Warren Wilson College, and James wanted to work together on a project and read the book and thought it could be a possibly interesting film. And anyway, I think the most interesting thing that happened on the film that I'm really proud of as one of the participants in it is that Caleb and I worked a lot on the script, and we prepared a full screenplay, a so-called beat sheet, a scene sheet, a treatment, and we really prepared the whole thing. And then on the first or second day of filming, a real-life argument broke out between Caleb and me and James. And James had the cinematic intelligence to say, that's alive right there. Everything up until then was Caleb and I just sort of, in a way, reanimating stuff from the book. And so what it was a really alive artistic moment to me. You know, it was that basically in terms of being a writer, the moments in my writing life I'm most proud of, and here in my, you know, not really acting, but playing myself, that we actually listened to what was happening at ground level, and we threw away this whole preparation, which we had spent, in a way, months, if not years, preparing, and just went with the moment. What makes work come alive is watching when a work is dead and watching when it flows into something fresh and raw and naked and vulnerable. One thing Kevin Larimar asked us before we came out, you know, is how writing the book and film have changed us, either our dynamic between each other or changed our writing lives, our psychological lives, our creative lives. I mean, do you feel, I mean, it's a little early. I mean, the book was published about 12 hours ago, so I don't know how transformed I am, but...
It's too early to say on how the book's reaction, but I think it's changed our friendship. I really do think outside of moments like this, we probably, in our personal experience when we get together, we never argue.
I love this project. It was a riot, and I think the film actually changed me more. Doing the film, just the 4 days of filming the thing, changed me more than the book, in the sense that a lot of what James and Caleb questioned me about was whether I was only a theoretician of risk or actually a practitioner of risk. And I think that one of the things that I feel like I already have been, am indeed a practitioner of artistic risk, but to the degree I was tumbling toward being only a theoretician of risk, I think the film, especially, and the book, have redoubled my determination to be a practitioner of psychic and artistic risk.
And yeah, I mean, it's changed my life dramatically. I mean, now I can tell my wife I have a job, even though it's not much. I mean, you know, the personal life aspects of it have really affected me. In one of the scenes, I say I'm trying to learn something from David. I think I'm half right and he's half right in a lot of, at least in my aesthetics, and I want to, incorporate both. I think there's a certain point to talk about your own follies and try to excavate all the things that you've done wrong or are capable of doing. And at the other hand, I think it's incredibly important to also have a global perspective and think of big picture ideas and at least contemplate them.
I think, for better or worse, I think that serious writers both live life and have extraordinary detachment toward life. My job is to curate my feelings as a writer, and I definitely live my life and experience my life, but I really hugely am curating my feelings. And a lot of the debate between Caleb and me is that my sort of psychic stance as a writer is that I am both feeling things and curating my feelings. One thing I want to do is ask people if they have questions. I mean, we have about, I think, around 15 minutes, and if you don't have questions, Caleb and I have many topics to talk about, but I wanted to, so much of what I love about this project is that it's all a kind of dialectic, that it's all push and pull. And so I've become kind of addicted to various kinds of collaboration. So I'd love to hear if people are working on their own collaborative projects, if you are baffled by what we're doing. I would love to hear what thoughts, comments people have.
I would love to hear what you think about the relationship between injury and art.
There's an amazing book which I recommend to everyone if you haven't already read it, Edmund Wilson's The Wound and the Bow, a study of the relationship of psychic wounds in writers from Edith Wharton to Hemingway to Joyce to Proust to Kafka, in which how their work is an endless reweaving of that original psychic wound into the bow of art in their life. And I just find that just an amazingly powerful trope. I grew up with a really bad stutter, and a very powerful motor of my whole life has to do with transforming the bad language of stuttering into what I hope is the rich language of writing. I can't even imagine art without the animating wound that really drives it. And I think the best art is in very close conversation with that wound, even if it actually never talks about it. I think that one of the things that Caleb has in pretty large dose, I don't know if you have any kind of acting background, do you have any kind of theater background, is that he's very performative. And I think I'm much shyer, I'm much more introverted than Caleb is, but I sort of have a sense of a performing sense as well, at least on the page. So I'm not sure I can untangle to what degree our friendship is performative, to what degree it's real. Friendship is a real art. Even when things got really nasty between us, and they did, I think there was always something a little playful about it. I always think of it as like sort of a soul and free fall, like they are trying to write for their very lives, this idea of Samuel Johnson's, which I really love, that, a book can either allow us to escape existence or teach us how to endure existence, and that like the really best works, in my view, sort of foreground the question of how the writer solves the question of being alive. I know Caleb hates it because he's heard me quote all this stuff a million times, but Kafka said, a book should be an axe to break the frozen sea within us. And I take that really seriously as marching orders for serious work. Well, again, Caleb has heard this before, but
David Foster Wallace?
yes, we're going to Wallace.
The abyss of human loneliness?
I only have so many moves, and this is one of them. I've thought about literature, and I've got it, there's sort of like 20 key points for me, and those are sort of it. Maybe it's a occupational hazard of teaching or something, but I can't improve on David Foster Wallace, who was asked what's so great about writing, and he said, that we're existentially alone on the planet. I can't know what you're thinking and feeling, and you can't know what I'm thinking and feeling, and the very best work is a bridge built across the abyss of human loneliness. That's quite serious, and that the very best writing, does delicately and barely construct that bridge by the writer facing his or her own quite serious existential questions. We know it when we see it, and those works feel like the writer is struggling for their very life on the page, actually and actively sort of figuring out their life on the page. When I say I really love serious work, I also love, to me, serious and funny are almost the same thing. There's no such work that's incredibly funny that's not heartbreaking, and there's no such thing as true seriousness that doesn't see the absurdity to things. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.